Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. You made it another week without us, but you need not worry any longer because we're here to rock you as only we can do. Thank you so much for joining us. This week, we're going to alert you about the worst of the Kentucky General Assembly for 2024. We are continuing some of our Kentucky Black History Month coverage with a very special guest, Savvy Shabbaz. I'm sorry, Savvy, I tried. Who is going to be filling us in on many of the projects that he's been working on, including, of course, All of Us or None Kentucky, where he is the president, and also his own nonprofit called Life Coach, Each One Teach One Reentry Fellowship. And he's got a lot more to talk to us about as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. But first, you out there, hey, are you ready to turn Kentucky purple? As the bad bills pile up in the Kentucky House and Senate, it's clear that there's still lots of work for us to do in the state to win better electoral outcomes for our Commonwealth. We hope you will consider supporting Progress Kentucky in our efforts to do just that. Make a contribution right now via our secure online website, Act Blue, to help turn KY purple. $5, $50, $500. Okay, probably not $500, but it all adds up. So thank you for considering helping us help the state. Okay, whoops. I'm also, as you're not supposed to talk about these kind of behind the scenes things, but I'm also producing the show at the same time. So if things are a little bit wonky, it's because of me. So time to check in with our co-hosts. Let us know who and where you are and what you are protesting today. And oh yes, you out there on the internet, we mean you too. Let's hear what you're protesting today. Feel free to put it in the chat while we're sharing ours. And so my name is Nate Orshan. I'm coming to you from Frankfort, Kentucky. And my sign today says, incarceration should be the last resort, not the first. And let's turn it over to my co-host tonight, Doug Price.
Hey, Nate. I'm glad to be here tonight. I started to try to come up with a sign that kind of bled off of yours, but I just don't really have that kind of intelligence, so I just made up my own. I'm Doug Price. I'm coming to you from Cynthiana, Harrison County, and my sign says, legislators work for all of the people, not just right-wing conservative values.
Right on. Although you would not know it to see some of the stuff they're doing, and to that, Doug, I think you are probably going to be giving us a little bit of news of the week to make us weak in the knees.
Yes, that is kind of a perfect lead-in to my topic tonight. How bad is the Kentucky House of Representatives? Last week saw the back-to-back passage of HB 255 and 367. Today was the 40th day of the 60-day session, and it can't end too soon. A week ago, Thursday night, I was watching the Kentucky House of Representatives on KET. I was interested in the debate on the passage of HB 255 that was primarily sponsored by Representative Philip Pratt of Georgetown. This bill changes child labor laws in Kentucky, which prior to this were stricter than the federal government, and they make the rules less strict. During the debate on the bill, Representative Pratt was asked point blank if he had contacted the Kentucky Department of Education to see what they thought of allowing students to work longer hours while in school, including in some cases working from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. on non-school days if the employer desired for a youngster to work. He had not contacted the Kentucky Department of Education. He was asked asked if he had contacted the Kentucky Labor Department, and he had not done that. He did admit that the Kentucky Labor Department had contacted him, but apparently they made him mad because he did not hear back from them in time to make changes. Essentially, he blew them off in his haste to pass this horrible bill. Here's a quote from Representative Pratt. I think this is good to get people out into the workplace, get them some work experience, and hopefully they'll get off the couch, quit playing Nintendo games, and actually make money. A section of the bill will allow children to operate lawnmowers. Is there any connection to this and the fact that Representative Pratt owns a lawn mowing business? The discussion from the Republican side of the aisle was pretty much white male Republicans talking about how they grew up working early, working late, and how their children now do the same. In other words, in my opinion, pontificating that kids are weak these days, and this will make them more successful in life like they are. There was discussion from the other side of the aisle expressing concern that longer working hours will hurt attendance in school and ultimately create more non-educated people in the workforce. This act was called child exploitation, child labor. It's going to create future poverty. Dropout rates will increase. This could affect SEEK funding for schools due to absenteeism when a child, a youth who has worked too many hours is unable to go to school. But no matter the concern, the Republicans' bottom line is, we want this to happen, and we will make it happen. The vote to pass the bill was 60 to 36. All Democrats voted against the bill, and 17 Republicans joined the vote against. I took time to find out how many were male and female. There were 15 male and 2 female legislators who agreed with the Democrats that this is a bad bill. HB 255 will now be considered by the Senate. Will they pass the bill or take no action? If they pass the bill, will there be enough votes in both chambers to overturn the governor's veto? I have to believe that the governor will veto this. Stay tuned. The next bill up is HB 367. I found it striking that these bills were back to back. There wasn't time in between. The sponsor of this bill is Wade Williams, who is from our former hometown of Arlington, Kentucky. He seemed like a nice kid when he and our son were in school together. This bill reduces SNAP benefits across the Commonwealth and will have a detrimental effect on hundreds of families, including the poorest of the poor. From a report by the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy, one of the partners we are affiliated with through the Kentucky Together project, the new policies would lead to tens of thousands of Kentuckians losing food assistance, either because they no longer meet the modest income threshold, their assets rise above the new low threshold, or they get caught up in difficult paperwork requirements. HB 376 would worsen hunger and poverty in the Commonwealth and hurt local economies when they need the help the most. Quick action on this bill indicated 2 things. We are in charge here, and it doesn't matter what you think. A quick take on the bill. The new law will cost $2.1 million in state funds to administer and will cause the poor of the Commonwealth to lose benefits totaling over $100 million. Where does the $100 million come from? The federal government. So spend $2.1 million to throw away $100 million free dollars. Yes, you heard that right. The cost-benefit ratio is out of whack. But the real problem is those in poverty now will be pushed further into poverty. It's almost like they think HB 255 will encourage more people to work, help their families, so they will not need these benefits they now receive due to the SNAP benefits that will be lost. During the discussion, I will admit that I dropped some dirty words at Republican legislators, and for real, when the vote ended, I left my office with tears in my eyes. Lastly, HB 367 will be heard in the Standing Committee on Economic Development, the Senate Standing Committee on Economic Development, tomorrow at 12 noon. The chair is Max Wise. One can watch this on KET. I plan to, and may say a few more words. Back to you, Nate.
That is a lot, and directed at some of the most vulnerable Kentuckians. So, okay, just to retread a little bit. So this new bill, the HB 376, would actually cost a couple of $1 million to sort of, I guess, track that that people are legitimately getting their SNAP benefits according to the new criteria. Okay,
That's
and
correct.
then and then as a result of that, we end up losing over $100 million free dollars from the federal government for the SNAP benefits.
Yes.
Wow.
And of course, a Republican would argue, well, those dollars are not free. We're paying for them. And I suppose that's true. But I took a look at
Yeah.
the Republican legislators who decided they didn't like this bill. A lot of them are located in counties where those SNAP benefits mean a whole lot. A lot of Eastern Kentucky counties. So I can understand their no vote on that. And hopefully when the bill comes back around from the Senate, if it gets through there, they'll rethink the thing.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And this whole notion that we pay for the federal, it's sort of, well, how many Kentuckians are there and how many Americans are there? So how much of our tax dollars are really, don't get me started.
Yeah,
And just
sure.
to go back to the loosening of child labor laws, I mean, I was listening. So a little quick plug for my old Kentucky podcast with Jasmine Smith and Robert Connie. If you're watching this or listening to this, odds are very good that you already listen to those guys. But if you don't, really, you should make them part of your weekly podcast diet, because their insight into what's going on as far as politics and policy is amazing. And I bring them up because they were discussing this as well. And they made all these really great points about, well, they both worked in high school. I worked in high school too. It sounds like they worked a lot more than I did. And they found it really important, in terms of like building sort of work skills and developing kind of a social life outside the home, and it's outside of school. I mean, so many positive things. So it's like, they articulated it really well, that it's not that people who are against this bill are against kids working. No, it's great to have high schoolers, taking on more responsibility and all that. But it's the notion that it becomes at the exclusion to of their education, and that's the part. So it's so just because you're against this bill doesn't mean you're against kids working, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It does mean that you're against, and some of these comments too, like the Nintendo, like really? is
Nintendo.
Is that what you really think these kids are doing? I mean, how out of touch can you be? All right. Well, I'll leave it like that. And let me take over for a second, and I will warn our loyal audience that I'm freestyling it just a little bit here, but that's okay. Because what I'm talking about is a story that comes to us from Kentucky Lantern. I'm going to add it to the show notes right now. There we go. And Betty Weaver has a comment. Not only hurting Kentuckians, but any good accountant could tell them that the federal match to the state match is a win-win. Idiots. Betty, I'm going to get that tattooed on my arm. Exactly. So this story comes to us from Kentucky Lantern, another must-read for caring Kentuckians. And it is about a bill being proposed to let fluoride be a local control issue. So right now we have a state mandate that says you've got to fluoridate your water, and it is actually one of these public health measures that's wildly successful in that anyone who studies this agrees that fluoridation of water is just amazingly effective at helping reduce cavities and even just sort of, severity of gum disease. There's a lot of good things that come from fluoride. Well, I think it's maybe mostly teeth, but the point is, the Commonwealth of Kentucky is 49th in overall oral health, according to the article. And we're also amongst apparently the top states of the number of toothless older adults. So 49th in overall bad health for teeth, and also one of the top states for older folks who don't have any teeth at all. Last year, when there was some testimony in front of the legislature, a UK oral health physician told legislators about patients being airlifted to the UK hospital. Why? Because they had life-threatening infections because of their dental disease. So not just that, they were having bad teeth and they were going to fall out, but like the infections could have killed them. So we have a dire need for good dental health here in the Commonwealth. But there's this group of legislators led by this guy from Falmouth, Republican Mark Hart, who want to make fluoridation optional. It's HB 141. He says things that are patently untrue. And it turns out that there's a lot of other folks like him, unfortunately, both in the legislature and out there in the wild, who think that fluoridation actually is somehow bad for your health. This has been studied to death, almost literally. It is not. Fluoridation is actually great for teeth, and unless you're taking just massive amounts of the fluorine, it's not bad for you. So the thing that these guys are doing, so this is Representative Hart and Representative William Lawrence from Maysville and Steve Rawlings from Burlington, Kevin Bratcher from Louisville. They're all saying it's local control. The thing we really want to do is make it so that the local communities and their own water departments can make this kind of decision. And on the face of it, that sounds reasonable, but when you're talking about something that is such a major public health benefit and proven, like statistically, scientifically proven, it makes almost no sense. I mean, if you're going to do that, you might as well tell local communities that they can regulate their own food. We don't need to have national regulation of food anymore. Just, Frankfort, where I'm from, will have its own little department in making sure that every single piece of food is safe for you to eat. That's where that kind of thinking goes to. And of course, as an aside, they don't care about local control when it comes to women's bodies, right? When it comes to reproductive health, then no such thing as local control there. So anyway, the hypocrisy kind of speaks for itself. And if you read this article from Kentucky Lantern, it's just gobs of dentists and health officials who are sort of pulling their hair out at the stupidity of this. So here's something that you guys can do. You can call the legislative hotline tomorrow when they're open at 1-800-372-7181, and you can tell the GA, please oppose House Bill 141 and let kids continue having water with fluoridation in it. And of course, while you're at it, you can also talk about the other bills too. Doug, I'm sure you have some thoughts too.
Oh, sure, I do. Let me just start with the calling the 1-800 number. If you've never done that, you should just call sometime to talk to them. They are the nicest people in the world. When you call them, they're going to ask you your name, where you live, so they can determine who your legislators are and that sort of thing. And they're always so very calm and collected, because I know they get a lot of people that call that are quite frantic over some of these bills. Now I'll jump back into the anti-fluoridation bill. Mark Hart was my representative until he got redistricted out. And he started this process. I think the first time he filed it was in the 2018 General Assembly session. I think he filed it again in 2020. And at that time, my state senator, Steve West, was signed on. He hasn't indicated anything just yet about whether he favors the bill or not. But like you said, Nate, it's there are very few people out there who think that fluoridation is a problem, even though it's time tested. And the Kentucky Dental Association sent a letter saying they did not agree with this bill. But they did have people there to testify on the bill, like the Cynthiana Mayor, James Smith, who I have talked to about this issue. In Harrison County, we get our water from the Cynthiana Water Department through the Harrison County Water Department. And he assured me that if the issue comes up and they have the opportunity to do local control, they will have hearings. And I guarantee you, I will be there. And I expect most of the dentists in town will be there to fight against removing fluoridation, because it's a stupid thing to do.
And that has it. And Betty Weaver, while you were talking, wrote in, another another bill designed to keep us backward and unhealthy. Why, idiots? That's Betty. That's Betty's new sort of tagline for everything that she writes in. It's like da 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 da, idiots. And of course, she is well justified in doing that. So yeah, thanks, Doug. Yep, it's just beyond the pale.
Oh, and let me mention this. Mayor Smith said we treat about 2 million gallons of water a day, and it costs $16,000 a year. So, $16,000 is not a lot of money, but if you do it for 20 years, well, that's $320,000. But the cost to children and Medicaid, Medicare, whatever, is going to be astronomical.
Yeah. This is what living in a society means, is that we all chip in through our taxes and we get services like education, like fluoridation, like public safety. Yeah. Okay. Harangue off. Well, you know what? I have just about 7:25. That ends the news of the week, and I think it is time to introduce our guest. We are very, very, very pleased to have with us Savi Kareem Abdul Shabazz, president of All of Us or None Kentucky. And he also leads his own nonprofit, which is called Life Coach, Each One, Teach One Reentry Fellowship, which offers awareness and prevention to the 3 Ps, that's prison, probation, and parole, and prepares individuals to return to their families and communities from incarceration. Savi also recently launched Savvy Shabazz Solutions, LLC, and I'll look forward to hearing about that too. But wait, that's not all. Savi is also actively involved with legal services for prisoners with children, formerly incarcerated and convicted people and families movement, that's another group, Dream Corps, and check this out, Savi was inaugurated into the 2018 Be Me Genius Fellowship, where he earned a proclamation from Louisville's mayor proclaiming June 7th to be Savi Shabazz Day. Previously, Savi had been sentenced to a total of 28 years for nonviolent drug offenses in McCracken County. In November 2020, Governor Andy Beshear granted him a pardon for his passion and commitment to improve the nation, the state of Kentucky, and its communities. And we are just beyond thrilled to welcome Savi to Kernels of Truth. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Good evening.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So, let's get things started off with sort of what's at the top of your CV there. All of us are none Kentucky. What is that organization, and how did you get involved with it?
So I got involved with All of Us Are None. It's a national organization. Its home base is actually in Oakland, California. I was sent a link at work. I opened up the link and I was like, "This can't be true." Reading some of the information, they uplift the voices of formerly incarcerated people across the nation, and I'm like, this can't be true. Like these are people just like myself, people with lived experiences. They fight against discrimination. They fight any type of discrimination against people, communities. You'll see All of Us Are None across the nation. And when I started, I love to make this statement. When I started, there were 6 chapters across the nation. If I'm correct, there are 29 chapters across the nation now. That was 2016. Today in 2024, I think there are 29 chapters across the nation. I went to a convention and a conference, and I was challenged to start a chapter here. And we started a chapter here in Louisville, Kentucky in October of 2017.
Wow. So what is this sort of like on a day-to-day basis? What kind of sort of things are you guys doing,
Currently,
hands-on?
justice reform, reentry, just ensuring people are getting the fair chance that they get once they're released, and just assisting individuals that are formerly incarcerated, directly impacted, and people that with lived experience with incarceration. Currently, we have, of course, what we're going to be talking about tonight. We have that coming up and be able to share some of the work that we'll be looking forward to doing in the next 2 or 3 years.
Well, shoot, why don't we just jump right into it? What have you been doing? Have you been visiting Frankfort?
Oh, I have to visit Frankfurt in about 10 hours.
Woo!
About 10 hours. I have been to Frankfurt a few times this session. Of course, this is a long session. And we've also scheduled a few meetings with legislators virtually as well. In my situation, I feel like we've been building relationships up there for a few years now, since probably 2019. And I think the virtual actually helps more because it gives more of that intimate setting, that one-on-one setting. You get about 15 minutes, you got your notes taken out, you get straight to the point, right? Opposed to chasing somebody around the elevators and in the cafeteria, catching them leaving outside of their office, or just having that short rush visit when you come to Frankfurt. But yeah, we've been to Frankfurt a few times. We'll be actually in Frankfurt tomorrow. There's a voting rights bill that's going to be discussed tomorrow at 10 a.m. We'll also be there Tuesday for the Day of Empathy. That's a day that dream.org has organized. We've been participating the last couple of years, just uplifting the voices of individuals that's been incarcerated. I would like to give a big shout out to Abolish Slavery National, Abolish Slavery Kentucky, and All of Us Are None National as well. You already mentioned FICPFM, dream.org, and other organizations I'm connected to as well. So I want to thank you for bringing me into the space to talk about involuntary servitude in Kentucky and what that looks like, abolishing the slavery clause out of our Constitution that states slavery and involuntary servitude in the state of Kentucky are forbidden except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. This includes myself and a host of other individuals. All the great things you just introduced about Savvy, and Savvy's a slave by Section 25, excuse me, by Section 25 of our Constitution. And it's time for Kentucky to live on the right side of history. So we linked up with some organizations. There's other organizations and movements around the nation that's doing this work too. But we're here in Kentucky, and it's time for Kentucky to get on the right side of history as well. So one of the first things we wanted to do, we met with the organizations that were doing similar work. We wanted to find out who was at the table, who needed to be at the table. So that's why we linked up with a lot of organizations like Abolish Slavery National, and Kentucky, and all of us are non-national as well. We knew we needed a bill. We actually launched this campaign on Juneteenth of 2023. But I was duly convicted in 2003 when I lost my right to vote, and I was disenfranchised from 2002 until 2020 when I received a pardon from gubernatorial pardon from Governor Andy Beshear. So you're looking at disenfranchisement, and it all ties in. So we knew we needed bills. This is where the building relationships and maintaining those relationships with legislation. Who's going to support it? Like, what does that bill look like? And what does that toolkit look like? You know, so we built a sign-on letter. We're up to 85 signatures. We passed out literature. Abolish Slavery Kentucky passed out literature, over 100 pieces of literature to legislation at the Capitol. We utilize social media and hashtags. We organize bi-weekly meetings. Of course, we have the virtual and in-person meetings as well. We even went in front of City Council 2 weeks ago because we want the support of the entire city of Louisville. And we're apparently in a press conference, and we're also preparing a resolution to present as well in front of City Council, but also at the Capitol as well. I think it's been doing a lot of great work. We have a Senate Bill 117, which has been sponsored by Senator Gerald Neal, Senator David Givens, Senator Amanda Mays Bledsoe, and Senator Reginald Thomas. Then we had House Bill 295, which was filed by State Representative George Brown, State Representative Beverly Chester Burton, State Representative Nima Kulkarni. Please excuse me if I did not say that correctly, and State Representative Josie Raymond as well. So we're getting some movement. We're getting some support. We would like to see, of course, much more support on the Republican side as well. But just recently, just a few days ago, Senator Whitney Westerfield filed Senate Bill 231. Here's the good thing about these bills. So we have 3 bills, right? We got Senate Bill 117, Senate Bill 231. We got House Bill 295. Here's the good thing about this. The language reads identical. You don't have a lot of legislators and a lot of community people and advocates discussing or going back and forth about what the language should and should not say. And that says a lot because I've worked on previous bills, and you can spend the whole legislative session just talking about language itself, right? But that's not the case. The language is the same, so we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to getting this. It's a mark out, removing this exception out of our clause and getting Kentucky on the right side of our history. We're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that. First, I want to say you had just told me something that I know I need to do a whole heck of a lot better job of, and that's building relationships. Because you have to have those relationships, because if you don't have those relationships, if you can't work across the aisle, then you're not going to have much luck. And I'm glad that I knew you would be up to date on all the bills that have been filed. And I want to jump in on the most recent one was filed by Senator Westerfield. That one is the only one that has had any kind of movement. And my expectation is hopefully that will be the bill that works through the Senate back to the House. The other 2 bills, they're still sitting in the Committee on Committees, which means, they're dead in the water unless leadership, the House or the Senate leadership, decide to move the bill. So I think Senator Westerfield's bill has the best opportunity.
Yes, I would have to agree.
And the other thing that factors in, there are a lot of constitutional amendment bills that have been filed, something like 24.
Mhm.
And hopefully this bill will be one of them that make it to the 4 that can be on the ballot, because we should be able to vote on that. Those words need to be removed from they don't belong there. They need to be removed.
And it says a lot about our state. You know, we talk about fairness. We talk about equality. This is what that looks like. You know, this was ratified August 3rd, 1891, and it was revised September 28th, 1891. This is 2024. It's long overdue.
Right.
So I agree. I would like to see this pass through the Senate and get us on the right side of history again.
Right
I
on.
agree.
The ayes have it. So okay, so we can call into the legislative hotline to promote these bills. We can show up tomorrow for the voting rights bill. What time should people be showing up for that?
It starts at 10 a.m.
Okay.
And if I'm correct, I think it's in room 154.
Room 154. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm not wrapping things up. I'm just trying to highlight things that are important here. And then the Day of Empathy is coming up next Tuesday.
Yes.
What? That is a fascinating. I mean, you know, every day should be a day of empathy, right? What makes this day different?
What makes this day different is that we're actually at the Capitol, right?
Okay.
And there's a group of individuals, Dream.org, big shout out to John Bowman and his team. He's a great friend of mine. He's a supporter of this bill as well, and our work. And we come together every year at the Capitol with individuals just like ourselves, formerly incarcerated people, directly impacted people, and people with lived experiences with incarceration and addiction and recovery as well. And we share that empathy. You know, we'll spend some time talking and advocating with legislation, sharing our stories. That's always a big part. That was one of the big parts with me, because I had built relationships with legislation over the years, but they had never heard my story before. You know, and for some of them, it was very shocking. But this is the place where we have to change the minds and the hearts of the people that have the power to make change in our communities as well. So I really look forward to that Day of Empathy. This will be like my 6th year attending and participating with that. So I'm really looking forward to that next Tuesday.
Is it possible to make change without having stories? Like, you know, you would hope that just on the face of it, you know, something that is just or unjust would be obvious. But you think you always got to have a story?
I think the power of story sharing. That's one of those things you just can't put a price on, because, I mean, just like you just said, you know, we can. It's obvious that some things need to be changed. We know this, right? But sometimes it takes that powerful story to share and get into the mind and the hearts of individuals that can check that box and say, this is what we're going to do. Maybe they have a person, a loved one, or somebody that they've worked with that's going through some of the same issues that we've been faced with too. So it's really important that we share those stories and we continue to change the minds and the hearts of legislation at that Capitol.
Right on. Let me just pivot slightly, because I want to cover some of the other things that you do. You have like one of the biggest hats in the world. A lot of stuff in there, and I'm interested in this life coach, Each One Teach One Reentry Fellowship. What do you do there? What's its relationship to all of us are non-Kentucky?
So the relationships of both organizations are designed to work with individuals like myself, formerly incarcerated people. Justice reform, reentry. But Life Coach Each One Teach One was actually designed while I was in prison. This is where this thought came up. This was the work that I was doing while I was at 1200 River Road, which is Green River Correctional Complex. This is what I did late nights with the tablet and piece of paper just like this. And I took notes. I tell people all the time, I didn't want to be in prison. But I didn't want to go through a lot of the things that I was faced with once I was released as well. And I didn't want a lot of other people to be faced with those things as well. Resources, assistance with housing, employment, educational leads. We needed that. And it was a very small circle of individuals that was there to assist and help when I was released. So I stuck with the program. I stuck with it. I had the opportunity to go to school. I went to JCTC, went to University of Louisville, took classes there. And I had an opportunity to work and build an initiative, Zones of Hope, through the Louisville Urban League. This was my first introduction into the community. I left there. I went to Reentry. It was an organization that worked with individuals that had young adults that had brushes with the court system. And we assisted them with resources to keep them on the right track. I went on to Pivot to Peace, which was a violence prevention organization. I left from there and went to back to JCTC, where I was a student of a program called 15K Rise Together. Bell Project, I made a difference with that. I worked there for 2.5 years as a case manager. And that's a big issue as well. And it ties right into voting rights. And it ties right into abolish slavery. I tell people all the time, while I worked at the Bell Project, I bonded people out for less than $12.50. And,
Whoa.
just went on, just continued doing work. But I stuck with Life Coach. And I had an opportunity to step on my own a few years ago. And that's what we've been doing ever since.
Far out. Wait, so let me just back up a little bit about the bail. Some of the bails are actually like under $20.
Yes, I have bailed individuals out while I was at the Bell Project for $12.50. I've bailed individuals out for $25. I've bailed individuals out for $50 and $100. Yes, people are incarcerated for money as less as that, and it's just because you don't have any money. Being poor should not be criminalized. Having a mental health breakdown should not be criminalized. Being houseless should not be criminalized as well. So those are some of the issues that we were faced with when I worked at the Bell Project. So yeah, everything ties in together. We even went into the jails 2 years ago, and we established jail-based voting here because you had individuals that could not afford to cash bail, but they were eligible to vote. But they could not vote because they could not get out and get to the polls or get registered. So what we did, we created a voter engagement and education curriculum, and we went inside Louisville Metro Detention Center, and we registered eligible voters. And through the absentee ballot, they were allowed to actually cast a vote. And county clerks was on board. Louisville Metro Detention Center staff was on board, and we made it happen 2 years in a row.
Folks, this is, if you're asking, show me what democracy looks like, this is what democracy looks like. That's amazing.
Thank you.
My goodness. A little personal question here. How do you keep from being bitter when you see so much injustice and you've personally experienced it, for years? How do you know what I mean?
I never stated that I wasn't bitter.
Ah,
okay. It's how you deal with it, day to day. Some days are good, some days are not. Some days you'll go out there and you'll come in a champion. Some days you won't. But you just got to make sure that you get up and you go right back at that work and to assist those individuals as well.
Got it. Get up and
I want to ask something. Your experience is amazing.
Thank you.
Where you were and where you are now. And I don't want you to share any names, but can you share with us some of the people that you have helped that you're especially proud of them for being able to accept your help and I don't know, get their lives in order?
And I wouldn't necessarily call it help. I like to call it coaching.
Okay.
If I have the coaching ability, if I have the game plan, individuals have to set in their mind that they are able to take coaching. It's hard to coach someone that's not coachable, right? So we have to get through that first. I don't want to name any names, but we've helped thousands of people. We've assisted thousands of people, even if it's just a word of encouragement. I do a life skills training today. Every Tuesday at the Restoration House. Shout out to Jeremy Jones in the Restoration House. I was actually incarcerated with Jeremy Jones, and he got out, he got his things together, and he has a Restoration House for individuals that's been incarcerated and going through addiction and recovery. We drew up a contract. I go in and I do a curriculum with life skills that I actually designed right out of the top of here. It was designed and they love it. They're engaged. I had an individual last year when we ran a trial, and he asked me after that, how did you just leave? How did you just walk away? And this was after the class. He was like, you inspire me. He said, I just want to know, like, how did you just walk away? And I told him I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want any parts of the fast life anymore. I didn't want to go to prison anymore. So I just quit. And he smiled and he said, I'm going to find a way to get out of here too. He said, I appreciate you. And he walked off. I went back this last Tuesday. He wasn't in class. I looked around because I pick on him in class every Tuesday when I go in there. But he wasn't in there.
Huh.
And I asked, like, where's he at? And they was like, well, he just started the job, so he won't be here as much as he normally
wow.
is.
Far
So
out.
it works. We've assisted a lot of people with a lot of different issues, and we want to just continue to be able to do the work that we do.
Do you now? You've just launched this thing, Savvy Shabbaz Solutions. Do you want to tell us about that a little bit? What's up with that?
Yeah, so we've done the nonprofit for a few years. We still have the nonprofit, of course. We run a lot of different initiatives and programming through there, but we're focused on with the LLC, Savvy Shabbaz Solutions. We're focused on reentry consulting. We would like to go into organizations and work with organizations that hire formerly incarcerated people and train them on not only how to hire, but how to keep us employed. And so let them learn about what it's like to work with individuals like myself that's coming home from prison, what it means to give a person a second chance. A lot of people never got the first chance in the first place. So we want to work with organizations and train them on how to work with individuals like myself. Reentry coaching and consulting. So it looks like trainings. We have a voter engagement and education training. We trained individuals at a local union last year with voter engagement training, and they went out. They went out to their selective communities, and they pop tents. They did pop-ups. This is the language that we use and we created on how to do that, how to set up your laptop, and how to provide some of the tools such as tablets where you can check a person's voting status, registration status, and you can register a person to vote right there on the spot. So we train individuals for that. We have the life skills training, of course. And then we have the post-incarceration awareness presentation, PICS. These is the mental issues that we deal with once we're released from prison. And a lot of people are not aware and they're not talking about that. So a lot of people like myself are not getting the mental health services that we need. I am now because I linked up with an organization, FICPFM, and they linked me up with a group, Rebuild, out of New York. And their therapists are all formerly incarcerated. So that seems to work out. So we bring in that awareness to individuals, groups, churches. We've traveled across the state doing those presentations, and it's just to bring awareness to individuals that this is some of the things that we deal with. So we're really big on facilitating now those trainings and getting in those spaces and bringing people the type of trainings and things that they need.
Okay. My mind's blown again. That sound you hear is me picking up pieces of my head. Hey, so let's end with hearing a little bit about how did Savvy Shabbaz Day, I'm sorry, I'll get your name right one of these days. How did that come about? Because not everybody gets a day named after them.
There's a national group that came in about 2018, Be Me. And they picked. We were interviewed. We filled out an application. We were interviewed, and we were selected to be a part of this cohort in Louisville. It's a national organization, and we were selected by the work that we were doing to improve our people in our communities here. They gave us some training, about 3 or 4 days. We came back. We had a community celebration. It was great. Everybody showed up. It was at the Muhammad Ali Center, and the mayor presented us with that group, that cohort. He announced that proclamation and proclaimed that Savvy Shabbaz Day was that day, June 7th, but each individual's day is that day as well. We had several other cohorts to come through that have their respective days. But yeah, that was a real special moment.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you, Savvy. Thank you so much for coming on to Kernels of Truth and
Thank you for having
sharing
me.
what's going on. And I think Doug will join me in saying that we look forward to celebrating Sabby Shabazz Day this upcoming June 7th. Maybe we'll even get a cake.
Yeah, let's do so. Please reach out.
Okay.
All right. You take care. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank
We
you all for
appreciate
having me.
Great job.
All right, Doug. So I think we have a call to action coming up here.
Yes, I got it covered here. Our call to action is the Poor People's Campaign March on Frankfort. We put a link in the chat, I believe. It's March on Frankfort, March the 5th, Freedom March on Frankfort. So we invite everyone to, you can check it out on Facebook or just show up on March the 5th. And then I think next I should close the show out. Is that right, Nate?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. We're happy that you joined us tonight. We had a lot of fun. Nate did double duty, and I think everyone will agree he did a great job. And Shabbaz, he's an amazing person doing amazing work, and all the orgs there that he's working with are doing amazing work. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, a Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement, commonly referred to as CAVE, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Next week, we'll be joined by another wonderful guest. You can watch our Facebook page, Progress Kentucky, or our Kernels of Truth page to get information on that. Production of episode 151 was by our multi-talented host and producer, Nate Orshan. Also, a big thanks to Nate Orshan, who wrote and performed our theme songs. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcasts and our show notes are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you are listening right now. Logo and some graphic content provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com. Hope to see you next week.